technology is only part of the equation, but having that transformation flow through to adoption within your organization and true, willingness and desire to change on the personal level is what differentiates success and failure.
Hey, I'm Martin. Welcome to another episode of Manufacturers Make Strides, where today I'm talking with Ryan Pollyniak, who's a digital transformations consultant with Western Computer. Today was a really interesting conversation. We discovered how digital transformations are often not, or the most successful ones aren't led by the technology, but led by people, and really about how getting culture change right first in the organization, getting a plan and a project together is really more important. Ryan, at one point in the conversation, kind of described how it would be like going and asking a builder to build a 5-bedroom house for you and saying, just go away and get on with it, versus giving him a set of blueprints, a theme board with the type of finishes that you want. So he really outlines kind of a really interesting viewpoint of how to do digital transformations led by vision and bringing the company with you. So we go from vision through to practicalities and implementation throughout this podcast. We also cover how strategies for enterprise, for mid-level, and for small businesses. So we really cover a lot in here. Let's jump straight into the conversation with Ryan now. Hey, Ryan, how's it going today?
Doing great, Martin. How are you?
Perfect. Yeah, really good. Thanks. Yeah, excited to get into this chat with you today. Thank you for coming on to the podcast. Just tell me where you're joining from today.
Yeah, I'm joining from Alpharetta, Georgia. If you go to the website, it's known as the Technology City of the South, and it's got quite an IT hub here.
Perfect. Oh, that's a perfect place for you. So you describe yourself as a digital transformation Sherpa. What does that mean to you?
Well, I saw somebody had Client Gladiator on their LinkedIn. I've spoken to others who had creative names, and I wanted to define what I did. And I feel like a Sherpa is somebody who guides people through difficult, complex journeys that they're not used to executing, right? Some people brave Mount Everest and they do it once or twice in their lifetime, and the Sherpas are doing it every day, and they're able to tell them, where the pitfalls are, where the dangers are, where the risks are, and the appropriate path to take. So that's why I picked that.
So what would you say a successful transformation looks like, when they reach that summit of the mountain?
Well, adoption is key there. I've got some thoughts on that to share in more detail as we go on, but technology is only part of the equation. And there's a tendency to get stuck in technology and stuck in features, which absolutely are important parts of a transformation. But having that transformation flow through to adoption within your organization and true, willingness and desire to change on the personal level is what differentiates success and failure.
So we'll get more into this later, but you think like a culture change comes first, or people come first in that process?
Absolutely. We're all humans, and in today's day and age, everything's digital, or you've got artificial intelligence, of course, and you've got this ultra reliance on technology more and more every day. It still comes down to people, and it still comes down to what makes people tick, and driving your team to adopt technology is about understanding that. What is driving you? How can I support you? How can I help you? How can I inform you? People are at the center of it. Absolutely.
Okay, brilliant. So I'd like to get into your journey now. So you've spent 15 years in this kind of space now. Where did the journey begin for you?
Sure. So coming out of the University of Georgia, I went to work for ADP in a little known division that has long since been spun off, which was ERP. It wasn't just payroll and HR back then. And so I did that coming out of business school because I was interested in how technology could apply to helping businesses run on a more tactical level, right? How do we execute financial statement generation and tracking inventory and managing sales and purchasing and things like that? And I learned quite a bit there. This was an ERP space designed for car dealership rooftops where, individual car dealership needed to run sales and finance and purchasing and everything else that goes into running one of those businesses. So ADP spun that division off after a few years of me working there, and I got into the Dynamics space not long after, Microsoft Dynamics ERP space, because I knew that I wanted to stay in the ERP space. So I still didn't have a focus yet in manufacturing at that point. I had kind of come from watching car dealerships run their businesses and understanding what technology layers they needed to be effective and how to help them grow. And I got into more horizontal ERP at that point. I was working with distributors and project-based organizations, manufacturers, companies that only needed financial management. As my career progressed and as our organization evolved into a more segmented approach, we decided to have more industry focus, where some of our people are focused in distribution, consumer packaged goods, e-commerce, things like that. Others are focused in manufacturing, like myself, or a project-based business or a financial-based business. And so when the opportunity arose for me to select my path, based on my previous experience, I really liked working with manufacturers because there was such an aversion to change. And that might sound counterintuitive, because when you're talking to the owner of a manufacturing company and he or she is telling you, here are all the things that we want to do, and you have all these great ideas for how you can help them get there, and you just really just want to start just dumping all the data, then you understand that really the owner is still primarily concerned with getting product out the door efficiently and making a profit and keeping their people who have been working in the shop floor for the last 20 or 30 years happy, and not having a mass exodus because of a technology change. And you really start to peel back the layers. So understanding the need for technological change in manufacturing companies, but also the aversion to that change, presents challenge. And it's really that change management layer, that connection of helping your people understand why and how and when are we going to change, that drew me towards the manufacturing space, which is where I focus now. Also, the logical based approach on the ERP, when I learned about machine centers and work centers and planning and capacity and how it all very logically fit together to produce the data that was required. But then every manufacturer that I talked to, these tools could help them achieve their goals. Many of them weren't using them. I saw a giant opportunity there to unify that available technology with these manufacturing processes and drive real change in manufacturing organizations. So today I focus in manufacturing, and have for some time now, helping SMB to mid-size organizations, even lower end of the enterprise space, change from a technological standpoint when it comes to ERP. We do, we'll handle the CRM and things like that, and the MES on the of course is a big part of that. But that core planning and production, and understanding your lead times and your demand, and generating all of the actionable data, the tools are there, and it felt like a great opportunity to help manufacturers understand what's available and how to use it.
Okay, great. I have a couple of follow-up questions and I'd like to jump into. I might roll them into two together because I feel they're kind of related. The first one that kind of struck me is this is like an industry or a space with like a lot of jargon, a lot of acronyms. I was wondering what you think of those, what are the pros and the cons to those? Like, are they off-putting to some people? And then the second one is, it's kind of related to that. Do you need to do what you do, or for someone to guide a successful transformation, do you need like a kind of a unicorn mix of techie personality traits plus the ability to kind of step back and see the business goal traits as well? Because I imagine that's like maybe an unusual combination of traits for someone to have.
The first question, I've been in the Microsoft industry for nearly 20 years now, and the Microsoft market ecosystem is probably the proper word. So I'm well familiar with acronyms. Aside from the military, I'm not sure that any organization has more acronyms than Microsoft, and certainly manufacturing space is no exception. MRP, MPS, every other acronym in the world. There is a challenge there, and the nature of that challenge is people like myself who have been in the industry for a very long time, and who might eat, sleep, and breathe those acronyms on a daily basis, assuming that other people know what they mean.
Yeah, so you say MRP, and you have all these associations of what that means, but you talked to the ops director or the CEO of a manufacturing company, and yeah, it doesn't have those same connotations at all. It may just go over. He just, like you say, he just wants to ship stuff out the door.
That's right. And even something as high level as ERP, enterprise resource planning, right? It does mean different things to different people. I've had C-level executives tell me, well, we're looking at ERP now, and we'll look at financial management next year. To me, those things are very much the same thing and all part of an ERP. So defining those terms is important. And today, forgive me if I do speak in acronyms because it happens. And if there's something that you wanted me to clarify in terms of what an acronym means, by all means ask. But I think in a more, interpersonal connection standpoint, defining what those terms mean is important. When I hear a C-level executive say, ERP this year, finance next year, what does ERP mean to you? Because to me, it also includes financial management and just not so much what the industry or the world thinks the acronym means, but what does the person that you're talking to think that the acronym means? And are you aligned on that?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I suppose my second question then is just clarifying that a bit. Is there a risk then in handing, say that company, they're looking at a ERP this year? Is there a risk of them just handing that over to, maybe just like an IT department with just techie type people and saying, go ahead and implement this? What are the risks in doing something like that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And there is risk. IT departments are evolving, in my opinion. Everything is SaaS, everything is hosted these days. So you don't need as much of the server IT infrastructure piece of it, though that can be important. There's a business transformation element to being an IT director or a CIO these days. How are we going to use technology to transform our organization and to drive our results? There's absolutely a risk in going straight to the tech people and saying, go make a decision. ERP is a tech thing, and so we're going to leave it to the IT team. It very much needs to involve the functional leads and the business process owners. And a massive part of undertaking something like a transformational ERP change is documenting those processes and documenting where you are now from a functional standpoint, where you are now from a business standpoint, and what your goals are, and mapping that out. The same way that you wouldn't go to a home builder and say, build me a 3-bedroom house with a 2-car garage, and the builder can do it, right? But is it going to have the tile you want? Is it going to have the faucets that you want? Is it going to have the flooring that you want? No, unless you go to that level of defining those things for the technical builders, and for the IT people in this case, here's what the business needs. And we've documented that. Now you can go engage with some ERP partners and understand how each platform fits, and importantly, how each partner fits, and also importantly, how each technology stack fits. So I've found a tendency to over rely on features when an organization goes to look at an ERP. You've got someone to speak to your question who says, okay, IT team, go find me something that handles warehouse management and discrete manufacturing and gives me finite capacity on my shop floor, and let me know how much it's going to cost. There's a lot more to it than that. There are long-term business goals. There are reliance on individuals who are going to be implementing the software and how they're going to make that a success. Just dumping it on the IT team and saying, go find me a piece of software that's going to work for us. While it is technology that you're buying, there certainly has to be a functional layer there where you are defining what you want the IT team to go buy and why. And then you've got to stay involved during the evaluation as well from the business side.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, great. Yeah, that makes sense. So kind of tell me, from the early days in your career or over your career, you must have seen some projects go well, maybe some challenges in others. What are the things that have kind of led you to where you are today and that outlook that you've just told us?
There are many types of people in the world, so I don't want to divide people into 2 buckets here, but on one end of the spectrum, I've seen executives who are trying to drive change in technology. And when the topic comes up about how your people are going to react and what the user adoption plan is and how you expect the new technology to be, accepted into your organization, you've got on one end kind of a group that says they don't have a choice. It's being mandated. They'll fall into line. And then you've got the other end who says this has been already discussed in the organization. The how and the why and the when is all clearly articulated. We're fully bought in, and the organization knows change is coming. They're aware of it. This is something that we're dedicated to, right? And those are 2 very different things. And trying to introduce a level of change like a comprehensive ERP system in a manufacturing company is quite a disruption. And so you've got to not only tell people that, hey, this is happening, whether you like it or not, fall in line or get out the door, right? You might have people who are the lifeblood of your business, who are making all the magic happen behind the scenes. And that can alienate people, right? Hey, I've been doing things one way in our current system for 20 years. I've got my whiteboards and my Excel sheets, and I'm doing just fine. I don't need to change. So it can't just be, we're changing. If anyone, if anybody has kids, right? Hey kids, I know we go to Burger King every Tuesday for the last 5 years. You can approach a change in one of two ways for that, right? Get everybody in the minivan and say, kids, we're going to McDonald's instead of Burger King. Like it or not, right? There's going to be a meltdown because you haven't addressed the why, and you haven't addressed why they would eat. Well, what's in it for them to go to McDonald's today instead of Burger King, right? So as opposed to, we're not going to Burger King today, we're going to McDonald's, it's, hey guys, Burger King is temporarily closed for renovations today. We're going to have to make a change. And by the way, McDonald's has a brand new playground that you all could play on and a peppermint milkshake they just put on the menu that you're going to love. Let's get excited and go there, right? Which message is going to resonate better? That's essential. That awareness of not only why we are changing, but why. We're not trying to ruin anybody's day or ruin their lives or sidetrack their careers. We're making organizational change for a reason. We're falling behind our competitors. We have security risks. We're unable to meet our KPIs, and we need better technology. We need to be prepared for AI. All of these things need to be really dictated to an organization well ahead of a project to start to foster that awareness of not only that we are changing, but why we're changing.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a great approach. And yeah, I can see that decision not going well in my family. If I said, yeah, we're going, yeah, I could definitely see a meltdown along the way. How do you then balance all of the kind of the opinions, the internal kind of opinions within the organization, and figure out the right for, you mentioned before about like basically giving the house builder a set of blueprints. What's a sensible way to take in all those opinions, processes, and kind of formulate those set of blueprints?
After you've made everybody aware of what's coming, have you ever heard of WII-FM, the radio station?
What's in it for me?
What's in it for me, right? and so a lot of people have heard of that. And it isn't critical as ever in every walk of life to understand what's in it for the people that are part of a change like that. It's critically understandable, but it's not just motivating them, which could be, hey, you're out of a job if you don't do this, right? That's motivation. But, my favorite change management philosophy, the ADKAR philosophy developed by a company called ProSci, says that motivation is only a part of desire. So yes, you're motivated to change if you're going to lose your job. You're motivated to change if your boss says we're changing systems, whether you like it or not. But do you actually want to change? Right? You've been a 20-year employee. You've done everything right. You've got to feel that desire. And everybody's situation is different. So there's an organizational approach to the why we're changing, and here's how we're going to approach this from a competitive standpoint with the companies we're up against. But there's also a very personal approach, and that should come typically from the people managers, right? Understanding each individual person. Maybe you've got somebody who is 6 months from retirement, a year from retirement. Their personal desire to change is going to be based on very different things than the early career person who just had their first child and his whole career in front of them. And so the person who's getting close to retirement just wants to clock in and get their job done here for the next, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, whatever it is. The person with their whole career in them may be more interested in developing skills and forging a long-term path within the company where they're now the leader of the new technology. People are motivated by different things. Maybe somebody wants that ability to get into management and lead people. Maybe somebody wants that ability to, be the driver for change in their organization. People may have those motivations may be intrinsic. They may be, self-fulfillment. I need to know that I'm making a difference. I need to know that I'm doing a good job. They may be extrinsic, right? Like, okay, how is this going to affect my pay? How is this going to affect my benefits? How is this going to affect my future career path and my ability to, feed my family? Everybody's motivation is different, or everybody's path to desire is different. So motivation You're doing it, that motivates you. You're going to lose your job, that motivates you. But creating the desire to do it is another story. Maybe with that new person, the motivation to desire bridge is saying, you're going to learn this new technology. You're going to be very marketable internally for new management positions. Even one day, if you decide to leave, you're going to have all this skill set that really is going to beef up your resume and make you attractive. Bridging that gap between desire and motivation. So there's an ADKAR example of this. So motivating people to wear their seatbelt, I believe was the answer. And was the example. And they said, you have different types of signs that motivate people in different ways. Click it or ticket. You're going to get a ticket and you're going to have to pay money if you don't wear your seatbelt. Save your life. Wear your seatbelt. That's a totally different motivation. People are, worried about self-preservation. Buckle up. It's the law. You have people that are rule followers and that by all means, they want to follow the law. So there are different signs motivating people to wear their seatbelts because the path to actually desiring to do that is different for different individuals. And it's no different in an ERP transformation. You've got to understand what's driving your people.
And they need some kind of sort of deep kind of thought kind of early on, I suppose, of what those factors and what those benefits to sell to your team could be. So what roles throughout the transformation then? What role do the leaders play in keeping the transformation on track?
So there are a couple layers to this. You've got the role that the leaders play internally, which is continuing to, convey that message of why and supporting the teammates' desires to change, and very importantly, empowering them to change. What you always hear, if you ask anybody, well, how do you empower your team to change in an ERP project? What are they going to say? Typically training. All right. We're going to train them. And training is great and obviously a critical part of any project, but it's ineffective if you haven't built that initial desire to actually do it. You're just adding something else to their plate that they don't want to do, and there's going to be pushback there. So it's a foundational type approach. This change management style is a foundational type approach. First, you have to make people want to go on this journey before you can empower them on how they're going to do it. So, everybody's different in that regard. You've got people that learn differently. You've got to supply them with the resources that are going to enable them to learn how they want to learn. Maybe it's self-paced e-learning. Maybe it's consultant-led training. Maybe it's hands-on experience. Maybe some people already have the knowledge and they say, yeah, I've used this ERP for 10 years at my old company. Their path to understanding the knowledge of how they're going to execute their job is going to be much different than somebody who's never used the application themselves. So that's one side of it, I think, for leadership to really guide change. It's the internal fostering of building the knowledge during the project. And then there's also very important part of this, which is partnering with the company who is implementing this for you on a true sense of partner. And what I mean by that is it can't be a one-sided, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Vendor, make this change happen for me and keep it on time and keep it on budget, which of course every CFO and COO in the world and CEO is worried about. Budget and timeline for ERP projects, they're notoriously difficult. Anyone who tells you otherwise hasn't done it, or they're lying to you, one of the two. Not that there can't be a path to success, but that path to success has to be a jointly agreed upon path, meaning, so you want to keep your project on budget. This change management that we've been talking about all along the way will go a long way to accomplishing that. But what can't happen from the leadership level is saying, Mr. and Mrs. ERP vendor, my users want X, Y, and Z because that's the way they used to do it in the old product. And so now we're going to go customize the new solution. Customizations, while possible these days in ERP projects, and not nearly as taboo as they used to be, right? Because you can still get around customizations from a technical standpoint now. They still do create complexity. They add budget to projects. They add long-term care and feeding maintenance to projects. They add immobility in terms of being able to go choose a new provider. All of these kind of drawbacks to overly customizing a system can be mitigated by not overly customizing a system. And the way that you go about not overly customizing a system is executive alignment with the partner that we are going to drive change. And that means that we're not going to build the 17-step workflow that you use now because you're comfortable with it. We're going to get from point A to point B in 3 steps using modern technology that is part of the new system. We don't have to go around that way anymore. Yes, I know you're comfortable with it. We're going to get you to the same spot, but the process by which you get there may be a bit different. I need your buy-in to adopt that process. So if we have that level of buy-in and agreement from the executive level on the client side, as an ERP partner, it's everything, as opposed to having to fight each individual battle and fight tooth and nail to use the software as it's intended to be. I guess if I could summarize this, there has to be a willingness from leadership to support the process of adopting best practices. That is something the partner can't do on their own. There has to be buy-in and agreement there.
So if you're enjoying this episode, please give us a follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That would help us to keep bringing authentic manufacturing conversations with the people who are shaping our industry. Thank you. I was just wondering, have you got any examples or do there any stories spring to mind of where, within that change management, you've managed, or of people who've kind of managed to uncover, maybe on people who were reluctant to change to begin with, but you've kind of been able to uncover what motivates them and go out at the end with a good solution?
Many examples over the years. Early on in my career, sitting in a conference room with executives and technical leaders, the CEO was in there. And part of, presenting an ERP solution is understanding the pain of the organization who is attempting to buy it. Why are you trying to change, and what are you trying to do with the new system? Like, what is your organizational pain that you're trying to solve? It's kind of a playbook in this kind of, endeavor, so to speak. And so in this particular situation, there's a massive hole in being able to tell a customer when they were going to be able to produce and deliver the order to them. So their customer service team was getting questions because it was a very time-sensitive industry with complex components. And the customer was saying, I have to have this in 6 weeks. Can you deliver it? They weren't able at that point to aggregate the appropriate data required, which comes from multiple angles. Do I have the raw materials? If not, how long does it take to get the raw materials? Do I have the production capacity on my shop floor? Do I have machines that are going to be down for preventative maintenance? They didn't have any kind of data points to make that happen. So we went through a whole presentation of, this is going to solve your problem because you can incorporate vendor lead times, and you can incorporate shop floor machine downtime for preventive maintenance into your capacity plan. And you can designate, work centers and machine centers and understand how long each routing step is going to take. And we got through it all. And the CEO says, well, our current system can do most of that, but the problem is getting people to actually put the data in. And I remember being a little bit frustrated at that point and thinking, I can't help you with that. I have the technology, right? And it really hit me at that point that educating that, that there has to be this level of a change management and willingness to make your people adopt it. I was essentially showing them a bunch of features that they had, most of them, but they weren't using them, right? And it really opened my eyes to the fact that technology alone is not going to drive this for you. You've got to use the tool. You could give somebody the sharpest axe there is, but their ability to split a log is going to be based on their skill level and their willingness to do it and all of those things. So that was a good example that really opened my eyes to being able to apply the tools to meet your business needs.
So what, I'd just taken that example a step further then, in that kind of situation where there's people on the shop floor who are reluctant to, to adopt those tools, maybe they see it as just an extra step on the job that isn't directly related to getting the production out. They don't want to do it, and maybe there isn't let's leave it there. What's the best way that you've seen of getting that behavior changed?
You've done everything right to this point. Let's say you've enabled everybody to understand why you're changing and how it's going to affect them, and you've provided resources and created that desire to change, and you're giving them their training during the project. Well, then you have to make it happen, right? In real life. If you've ever taken a golf lesson out on the driving range or gone to, YouTube and looked up a personal training lesson, and then you go try to apply it. You go out to the golf course and you're hacking it in the woods. If you're like me, you're hitting it in the water and you're thinking, well, I'm holding it the way that they said I needed to hold it. And I'm swinging it the way that they said I needed to swing it, but I'm not getting the results I want. Or with the fitness is even a better example of, well, maybe I've learned how to do my exercise routine to meet my goals, but I don't have the time. I don't have the ability to execute it myself. So eliminating blockers is a big part of that. What in that person's process is preventing them from entering the data? Maybe they don't know it. Maybe they don't have it an input device readily available when they need to put it in. Maybe they need something mobile. If they're too busy, and this is a big one, when you're going through the critical phases of an ERP project, which is a big investment for any company, the benchmarks industry wide say 1% of your annual total revenue for an ERP project, right? So if you're a $100 million company, you can expect to spend $1 million on an ERP project. That's a big investment for anybody. So making sure that you have freed up the time for people to do this. And I do not recommend doing that by temporarily staffing an ERP project. Temporarily backfill the day-to-day lives of the people who are critical to your organization and free their time up to be part of a project. And then even through go live and during that initial part of the adoption of a system like this, where they're now inputting vendor lead times and managing shop floor capacity and doing all those things that they need to do in order to promise a delivery date for the customer, you have to enable them through eliminating blockers and making sure that they have a sustained, reinforcement of the knowledge that they have, whether that's through KPI achievement for, let's say, bonuses, or again, going back to what's in it for me for each individual employee. Maybe it's company-wide acknowledgement in an email. So-and-so has done a great job of adopting this ERP platform, and round of applause. That's enough for some people. Maybe it's a monetary bonus. Maybe now that you have all of this great data, you could say, hey, whomever has done the best job of aggregating vendor lead times by the end of the month gets a day off to go play golf, whatever it might be. And so there's got to be, freeing up people's time to do it. I always tell people who are in an ERP sales cycle, don't rush this. Don't let anybody rush you. And don't do this when you're overly busy. You don't want to be going live during your busy season. I hear requests to go live January 1st all the time. Almost no project goes live on that date. It's actually not a good date to try to go live. People are on holiday. People are closing the year. Take your pick for reasons why it's not a great time to do it. So there's got to be, elimination of blockers. There's got to be support for maintaining knowledge and driving accountability, right, for using that application long term, which is important. Who's ever gone and worked out for a couple days in the gym, and next thing you know, 6 months later, you haven't touched it, right, and your membership is still billing. There has to be, maybe in that example, you've got a workout buddy who is keeping you, every Tuesday and Thursday, they're calling you and saying, hey, it's time to go to the gym. And you've got that kind of motivation. It's no different in an ERP project. There's got to be something driving that use long term, or human nature is to revert to old habits and to use old processes and to go back to my Excel sheet and my whiteboard that were working just fine. If you haven't built all these steps along the way to empower somebody to use the new tool, that's going to be human nature.
Got you. Okay, great. All right, thank you. I want to jump into to switch gears slightly. We have a section called Myths and Truths. Okay. I'm going to throw some statements out there. You can give me a quick answer, or you can give an explanation. We've touched on this one before, but I'm going to bring it back now because I'd like to know what you're thinking in one-liner. You can drive transformation through authority alone rather than alignment.
Yeah, that's a myth. You can get a little bit of the way there, but you're going to foster discontent, and you're going to risk morale tanking. There has to be alignment. Authority alone, mandates alone are not going to cut it. And you go back to the kids example, right? Hey, everybody, we're going to Burger King. You're going to have a revolt. You haven't explained anything, and so you've got to align absolutely.
Yeah, and you're making a difficult path for yourself if you go that way. Yeah. Sustainable transformation relies more on leadership than technical expertise.
I do agree with that. The technical expertise, so I'll call that a truth. The technical expertise is part of the puzzle. But again, until you've decided what you want that technical expertise, which is the execution of a vision, to actually accomplish, you have no direction. And so, the home building example, go build me a house and cross my fingers and hope that it's what I want when it's done. That's not ever going to be successful. You have to define the goals and then hand it over to the people executing it from a technical perspective to achieve those goals. So I'll definitely call that one a truth.
Okay, good. All right, last one. Transformation means long hours until the project's done.
Truth. Let's not sugarcoat it. These are big projects. They sometimes do require long hours. I think the critical part of that is, number one, not glossing over that. Initially, it should be part of your change management communication to your team that there will be challenges, there will be change. We're doing it for a reason, and then empowering them from a tactical standpoint to have the time and the resources to execute that change. Absolutely. So you don't want to promise, guys, this is going to be easy. Don't worry, we've got it covered. And then, the bullets start flying, so to speak, and people are wondering, well, what happened to this super easy project that was supposed to be a breeze? It's not the appropriate expectation to set. And so I would make sure that, setting realistic expectations. And if you haven't been through an ERP project, counseling with somebody who has been through them, that could be your implementation partner, who hopefully is not telling you it's going to be easy and seamless, because it never is going to be. Addressing reality, or, setting realistic expectations and then empowering people to get through the project itself, are critical. So yes, truth, long hours, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your honesty there. Yeah, you want to set out with realistic expectations. So yeah, thinking to the future, kind of looking ahead, what excites you most about the digital tools that are coming through at the moment that are going to impact the manufacturing industry?
Well, I think in the manufacturing industry in particular, there is so much room for growth. Like we talked about in the beginning, manufacturers are so focused on today, getting my product out the door, and then, breathing a big sigh of relief at the end of the day, closing the door and starting again tomorrow. The tools that are available now, artificial intelligence is no exception, are there to empower decision-making and to drive manufacturers to new heights, which will benefit everybody. And there's a lot of fear and trepidation about AI, which should be part of this whole conversation, where some of the people that have been in the back for 20 years with their whiteboard think that their job's going away. We still need people, especially in an industry like manufacturing. The hands-on people, the people with the knowledge, that is the lifeblood of an organization. So helping people understand that the technology is going to aid you and help you and get you out of some of your more mundane tasks and focused on the better and bigger picture, that's exciting. You've got quite a bit of opportunity, I think, in the manufacturing industry for the companies who do adopt change to make quite a bit of headway on their competition, as opposed to the ones focused on getting the product out the door today. And so that's what drove me to focus on the manufacturing industry, and what drives me every day, every manufacturer that I speak with, to help them understand what's available and how we can help their business grow.
Yeah. So you think it's going to help people to become more like proactive and planning rather than less like in reactive mode and getting stuff out the door right now?
100%. Reactive mode is fighting from behind all the time. You have to have appropriate planning. You have to have appropriate data in hand in order to make long-term decisions, whether it's buying product or measuring the effectiveness of a particular bill of material. Maybe you're an engineer to order manufacturer. You have never really tracked the profitability of any of your builds. Each build is different, right? Each person needs something a little bit different, but you don't have the data to say, okay, which production processes might be efficient and which ones might be inefficient. And then that can drive all kinds of change in your organization. Focusing on the style which is more efficient can make you more profitable. It helps you quoting on the front end, so you can know what a different build might take. It helps you drive KPIs internally to empower your managers to track profitability and drive performance incentives based on that. So there's a whole world of change for these manufacturers that are, have been averse to it for some time. The ones that embrace that are really going to see the benefits.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, sounds good. What do you think the next generation of transformation leaders will do differently?
Well, I think focusing on the people, on the adoption from the people, getting out of the technological mindset. No offense to the CIOs and IT directors on the podcast, but ERP and general system evaluation and selection has to be driven from the business level's goals these days. And so that is changing. I've seen the CIO and this IT director role change before my eyes, from somebody who can write SQL scripts to somebody who can envision how technology is going to change their business and drive the goals of the ownership. So that's the biggest change. It's the IT stuff, the granular stuff is being either put in the hands of the big outsource providers like Microsoft with their SaaS software, or granular workflow development and report development is being handled by AI. You still need people to design it. You still need people to execute it. And I think that there's a world of opportunity to take the mundane tasks out of people's hands with technology and get the data in the hands of management that they need to make the proper decisions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, that sounds like a good plan for the future. I just want to leave it with one thought, Ben. How can someone who's got a transformation coming up maybe next year, what's the best way that they can start preparing themselves and their team for that upcoming transformation?
Great topic. We could probably have a whole session on this one, but of course, all the change management stuff we discussed, you've got to get your data ready. Nobody can help you with that in terms of, you've got your customer list and your vendor list and your item list and your bill of materials. There's no technology partner in the world that can tell you which customers you want to bring into the new system, what vendors you haven't transacted with in 10 years, what bill of materials you no longer build. Prepping data, documenting what you want to get out of the system. And that goes back to what we've talked about a couple times today with the business directing technology team on what they need to go find. If you haven't documented that, what's going to happen is you're going to get in front of somebody like us who implements ERP, and we're going to say, what are your requirements? What are you guys looking to get out of a new system? What are your business drivers? Well, I don't know. We have an old system and we want to move to a new one. Well, obviously, there's a lot to plug in there, as opposed to somebody saying, well, we've been through that exercise and we're prepped, and here's a document of all the things that we would like to accomplish that we can't accomplish in our new system. Here are the table stakes at creating a PO and creating a sales order that we know that you can accomplish. So prepping from a data preparation standpoint, prepping from a process documentation standpoint, prepping from a change management standpoint. The change management that we focused on today, it has to start well ahead of a project. We've had, quite a few projects come to us that have been, gone awry with another implementation partner. They go back to Microsoft and they say, give me someone else, or your product is terrible. And usually that's an implementation process, question. And they'll come back to us and we'll find that their people haven't seen the system until UAT, acronym again, user acceptance testing, as you prepare to go live. It's far too late at that point, guys. I mean, prepping your team for change has to happen before you select a product, before you select a partner. Here's the journey we're going on. Here's why we're going on it. We'll let you know as we select partners and select products, and we'll let you know how we're going to empower you to be knowledgeable and long-term to use this project and grow with it. We'll prep you on how it's going to impact your day-to-day job and your day-to-day life. That all has to start well ahead of a project. It can't be mid-project. It's too late. And you may well have some revolting on your hands. You're just pulling into Burger King at that point instead of McDonald's, and it's too late at that point. So those pieces are all important to prep for a project.
Perfect, Ryan. Thank you. That's great. That's really, really useful, helpful advice, I think, there for people to start thinking about. Also, want to say you did great. Not too many acronyms in
I tried.
All plain English. That was good. What's the best way people can find out more about you, about Western Computer?
Sure.
If they want to find out what you're up to.
WesternComputer.com, is our website. You could find me on LinkedIn if you'd like to have a personal chat. I'm glad to do that. There are not too many Ryan Pollyniaks on LinkedIn, so you could find me pretty easily there. But our company, Western Computers, we've been doing this digital transformation with companies for quite a long time, exclusively in the ERP business for over 20 years. Wealth of information on our website, very personal touch, guys. So we're interested in understanding what makes each organization's change journey different and addressing that, and always glad to have a talk.
Yeah, you're a great source of knowledge on this, Ryan, and yeah, I can tell you're obviously a safe pair of hands to to take people through this process. So, yeah, thank you a lot. Thank you very much for your time today, Ryan. That was great getting into the details of that with you.
Thanks, Martin. I appreciate you having me on.